Yeah. Okay, so can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so Randir, I'm not a great fan of this virtual life. I'm a very touchy-feely kind of guy. I really like to engage with students at the face-to-face level. But this is where we are. So I've introduced myself earlier on. I'm currently the CEO of Tsiba Business School. And let me just take 2 minutes to tell you about Tsiba. Tsiba in isiXhosa means to jump. It's a private, non-profit institution that was started about 15 years ago in the Western Cape in a blanket factory in Woodstock, or in Observatory. And from there, it moved, and currently we've got the most beautiful, funky campus in Woodstock that I'd like you to welcome all of you to when you visit Cape Town to come and see me at Tsiba. So we are a business school. We are very small, unlike UKZN. We only have about 400 students, and our focus is mainly to teach entrepreneurship and leadership to many of the students who come from the most impoverished areas on the Western Cape, places like Kailicha, Langa, Delft, Mitchell's Plain, etc. And in the 15 years that we've been around, we've had 9 Mandela Road scholars. We've had 4 Kofi Annan scholars, and we've had 2 Alan Gray scholars. So in terms of the ratio of producing Mandela Road scholars, which is a very prestigious scholarship, we are probably the top in the country. Our focus is primarily on leadership because we fundamentally believe that until you are able to lead yourself, until you are be aware of who you are and how you can leverage what you are, it's very difficult for you to become successful in life. So that is what drives our institution. I'm a regular columnist and a social commentator on leadership and current affairs in all the media platforms in South Africa. If you Google my name, you might come across some of my articles that were published in the Mail and Guardian, Daily Maverick, Leadership Magazine, etc. And I'm passionate about making a difference. I believe that if you choose to live in South Africa, you have no choice but to try to make a difference. The country is going through a really rough ride at the moment. In fact, there's a organization called Economics and Economics Limited. I think it's a research company based in Johannesburg. And they've given South Africa 10 years to become a failed state. 10 years to become a failed state, like either Zimbabwe or Venezuela. And yet, at the same time, we have some of the top universities in the world. We have some of the top financial institutions in the world. So you ask yourself the question, what is going wrong? And I would like to think, if you look at human civilization over 2,000 years, the number of people who have actually made a significant difference in our destinies, in our human history, are probably less than 20. If you count some of the spiritual masters like Buddha or Muhammad or Jesus, Krishna, or political leaders, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, or some of the tech people, you will struggle to come up with 20 names. And yet they have fundamentally changed the way that human civilization has evolved over the past 2,000 years. So I believe that every single one of you can be a superhero, can come up with some of these solutions, can make a difference. And I think it is your responsibility to make that difference. There's what is called the Singularity University that's linked to NASA. It's not an accredited university. It's a collection of people who do academic work, research work, whatever really floats their boat. And apparently, I'm not sure how true this is, but to become a member of the singularity, there are two criteria that you must meet. The first criteria is you must have the potential to become a Nobel Prize winner. And the second criteria is you must have the potential to become a dollar billionaire. Okay, so when you think of that, you know, this is just like kind of American type of hype. However, what I find fascinating there is that they set such lofty goals to achieve. And this is what we are facing in South Africa. Our people are scared to dream. We are scared to set exponential goals for us to reach because we lack the confidence. So it's very important for us to realize that we have the potential in order to become much greater than what we are. In 1970, Alvin Toffler wrote a book called Future Shock. And in this book, he made this quote. He said that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. We have to unlearn some of our bad habits. We have to unlearn some of the things that are holding us back. We have to learn new skills. We have to learn about how the world has changed. So South Africa in 2020 is at a critical juncture, the same South Africa that I live in and that you are living in. We are living in a situation, in a country where there is political instability, there is socio-economic unsustainability, there's low investor confidence, there's compromised ethics. If you listen to the Zondo Commission every single day, you'll hear about how the state has been captured by people who have only done so for personal enrichment. So Eskom, that used to be in the 1980s, Eskom was the top electricity utility company in the world. In 1980, 1 rand equaled $2 American. Today, it's 16 rand to 1 US dollar. It shows you how this country has fallen in the eyes of international investors. So if you think of all of this, and I'm not trying to scare you, but I think it's important for you to understand what the environment is like. It results in higher risk. Higher risk means that we have been downgraded. Moody's has downgraded us to junk status. Junk status means that our bonds that the government sells on the international markets to bring in foreign currency, that many of the international exchanges cannot sell South African bonds because they are considered to be worthless. And the reality of this is that the quality of your lives are going to be impacted. I am close to retirement, but for someone who's in the early 20s, the future looks particularly bleak. If you think of the hospitals going down, the public schooling systems going down, etc. So we have a huge responsibility in order to fix what is broken. So on top of the dysfunctionality in the country, the ESCOMs and the SAAs and crime, etc. What happens in 2020? We get clapped by COVID-19. So COVID-19 comes like a curved ball and really, really messes us up even further. But I'm not the prophet of doom. COVID-19 has really created new opportunities. It has exposed the fault lines in South Africa. It has brought us together in many ways. You see the collaborations now with the medical and the medical people, politicians, academics, all trying to find a solution. So we realize that we need superheroes. And who are those superheroes besides Professor Salim Abdul Karim or Ramaphosa or Professor Rawatlal? You are one of those superheroes. So you need to insert your photograph into this template here as a superhero or a superhero in the making, because this is what the world needs right now. We need superheroes in order to come up with solutions. So the wonderful research that you're doing, the digital solutions, the chemical without borders, artificial intelligence, wastewater research, etc. It's fantastic work, but we need to scale it. We need to scale it to a way where it starts to make a significant difference in the lives of ordinary South Africans. And I think this is where entrepreneurship comes in. Why entrepreneurship? You know, entrepreneurship isn't only about building a company. But if you think of entrepreneurs, whether your name is Raymond Ackerman or Bill Gates or Ludwig Marishani or Sibu Shabalala, etc., what they have done. So if you look at countries where entrepreneurs are active, it boosts job creation in many parts of the world. If you go to China, China in under 10 years took 300 million people out of poverty. In under 10 years, 300 million. In 25 years, South Africa put 50 million people into poverty. We have, I mean, just to give you some information here, we have 17 million people living on grants. Child grant, old age grant, military veterans grant, disability grant, whatever grant, there's a grant going for you. 17 million people are living on grants. We have an average unemployment rate of probably 35% right now. And 5 million people are paying tax. So 5 million people are paying tax to keep 58 million people going. It is completely unsustainable. When I moved from Cape Town, from Durban to Cape Town in 2019, the removal company, Elliott, they removed my boxes and they said to me, they are very busy. I said, what are you busy with? They said that that office in Durban was processing about 14 families every week that was applying to go to Australia, New Zealand, or Canada. South Africans, only that one company, Elliott. It doesn't include all the other ones, Bidulphs, etc. The people who are leaving are those with skills, those who are capable of paying tax. Once you erode our tax base, there isn't enough money for education. There isn't enough money for health. There isn't enough money for roads, etc. So it really puts us in a very precarious situation. So entrepreneurship for me is one of the levers in order to turn around the country, like has happened in Singapore, like that has happened in Malaysia, in Thailand, Vietnam, etc. So entrepreneurship boosts job creation. It enhances economic growth. It enhances tax revenue. And lastly, it has a tremendous psychological impact where it moves people away from this entitlement thinking towards pro-action, towards wanting to do something. When you go to the SASSA office every month, you see people standing in the queues. Many of them are young teenagers waiting to collect a child grant. Young girls fall pregnant in order to get a child grant. So once you give people grants, you create this thing of entitlement. Think of the students at UKZN who are depending on NSFAS. When I was a student, I never had a weekend or a holiday for 4 years because I worked every single Saturday and I worked every single holiday. In fact, my student job was armed banking. I worked at a company called Fidelity Guards. I used to take money from the shops to the bank. I will never do such a job today. So, so I'm telling you this because I think it's important for you to just to step outside of being a student and see the world and the country for what it is. And the technology of tomorrow requires men and women who can make critical judgments. This is what is required of you. You need to think critically of what it is that you are seeing around you. So critical thinking for me is you ask the question, what is going on? And how can I fix it? People who can weave their way through novel environments that we are seeing now. This is a new situation. Talking to you via Zoom, remote learning, distance working, whatever you want to call it. And who are quick to spot new relationships in this rapidly changing reality. COVID-19 was a great leveler. It has reduced all of us to the same level. Countries, wealthy countries like the United States, Italy, Spain, they were most impacted by the COVID-19. South Africa did very, very well. Africa is doing very, very well. So with all the most sophisticated algorithms and AI and medical systems that they had available there, they didn't do so well as we are doing. So COVID-19 was a way to show people that, it's not always having your technology. What is the most important thing is the thinking behind the technology. America has got all the best technology in the world. They have the highest infection rate of COVID, and they have the highest death rate. And you can just look at the way Trump is navigating his way through being the president of the United States and all the other people who are working with him, and you can see why. So critical thinking and making correct judgments are very, very, very important. So just imagine that I'm a bank. And I come to you and I say, Randir, I'm really impressed with your group of entrepreneurial students. I was impressed with the way they presented themselves. So I'm going to reward every single one of you. I'm going to give you 86,400 Rand every single day. I make the deposit to you at midnight, at 12 o'clock in the morning. And if you don't use it by 12 o'clock midnight, it disappears from your account. What will you do with it? You can switch your mics on and just let me hear some comments. 86,400. If you don't use it, it disappears. What will you do?
I'd probably do high-risk investments.
Okay, so today we'll do some high-risk investments. Anyone else?
Withdraw it and put it somewhere else where you can't take it away at the end of the day.
Okay, Samisha, good. Anyone else?
Said.
Yeah, I'll probably spend it at the rate at which it's allowed. So it's like, I assume that you're hinting at time, so seconds. So
yes, I'm hinting at time. Very well done there, Siddharth. So life gives you 86,400 seconds every single day. Whether your name is Siddharth, Samisha, Sudain, Pilani, every single day, life gives you 86,400 seconds. Whether you Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, you get the same amount of time. So life gives you this every single day. What is the difference between all of us and probably Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk is how we utilize this time. That is the difference. If you think of time as money and you had to extract more value from this 86,400 seconds, then you will achieve a lot more than what you're achieving right now. Malcolm Gladwell, and I would highly recommend you to read his books. He wrote a book called The Tipping Point. And in The Tipping Point, he speaks about the 10,000 hour principle. And he says that when he looked at some of the top achievers in the world, some of the sports stars like Tiger Woods or, Serena Williams, even the techpreneurs like Bill Gates, when he looked at how much time they invested in order to become successful, it roughly worked out to 10,000 hours of dedicated practice. So Tiger Woods started playing golf at the age of about 3 or 4. Little young, I'm giving you some ideas there for your sons, Radir. So Tiger Woods started playing golf at the age of 4, and he turned professional, I think, when he was 14 or 15. But from that age of 3 or 4 years old that he was, he put in the time, the hours practicing his golf, his putting, building his muscle. The same with the Williams sisters, Serena and Venus. Bill Gates, and I watched a documentary on Netflix called Inside the Mind of Bill Gates. Bill Gates started coding at the age of 8. He started at the age of 8. Coding, working on this. And Warren Buffett started investing, I think he was about 9 years old. When he was 11, he bought his first share. And he claims it was too late already to have bought his first. He should have bought his first share earlier. When he turned about 14 or 15, he bought himself a small farm. So, we are too late in this country. We are slow to take up opportunity. I was very fortunate that I spent 3 months in Japan in 1997 as part of a Rotary initiative. And I discovered that in Japan, they start teaching engineering at primary school level. So Japanese children learn about engineering principles at that sort of primary school level. So Japan will probably graduate 60,000 engineers every year, 600 engineers, it's like some phenomenal number. And we will produce maybe under 100. So you can see, the scales of difference between all these countries. So how do we respond to this new reality that we are living in? To speak about the new world that we're living in. Firstly, we need to become informed. So informed meaning become expansive in your learning. Read widely, learn about business. Try to network with people. I started something called Meet the CEO when I was still at UKZN. And I'm hoping that perhaps this office under Randir can take up that initiative again, where you invite CEOs to come to the campus. Tongaat, Hewlett, Unilever, some of the Aspen Pharmacare, Adapt IT, they all have their head offices in KZN. Get them to come to campus where the students can hear from the horse's mouth what were the challenges that these people navigated to become who you are. So it fast tracks the thinking about where you are right now and where you need to be. All of you have the potential to become CEOs of your own tech companies. But you need to network. You need to immerse yourself in that environment. If you had to go to Silicon Valley in San Francisco, you'll see that it's an ecosystem of technology, of AI, of all the technologies that is taking the world forward. When you go to the coffee shop, the Starbucks, you probably will bump into the CEO of Google or Apple or something like that. But here in South Africa, we are such a fractured country. UKZN is in a bubble. And there is no engagement with the private or the corporate sectors. We tried through a number of initiatives. I started something called BOLD when I was there. And BOLD stood for Business, Organizational and Leadership Development. But it received no support from the institution. So you need to inform your thinking through reading, through networking, and do not have preconceived ideas. So when I talk about open heart, open mind, open will, is just open yourself to learning. Secondly, become bold and decisive. You know, sometimes we can be, if you are in an academic environment, we are too conceptual. So to migrate your thinking into action, setting yourself some very strict timelines. So when you have your project that you're working on, how can your project be birthed into something which is practical, which is realizable, and which can be applied? It needs to be exponential. Exponential means that you need to derive more value from what it is that you set out to achieve. So exponential value is one of my themes for 2020. How can we do more with what we have, or how can we do more with less? We are going into a cycle where there is going to be less resources available. In fact, I think that the budget to public universities is probably going to be cut next year because there isn't enough money in the country. The government had incurred huge costs with COVID-19. And also, you know, if you look at all the corruption around the personal protection equipment, etc., there isn't going to be enough. So there's going to be greater expectation on everyone to do more with less. Some companies have already instituted retrenchments. They have cut salaries of staff, etc. I don't know what UKZN's approach is going to be. Being a state-owned enterprise, it's probably going to get a bailout. So UKZN will get a bailout the same way that SAA gets a bailout, even though it's a failing institution. Eskom will get a bailout, even though it is that's a failing institution. But it's not the way that we build a successful economy. So there has to be transformation. We have to transform personally. So there has to be the willingness to transform, and you need to be introspective, you need to be reflective, you need to look inside yourselves and to see what is it that you need to do so that you can thrive in this new reality. What are the habits that are holding you back? How are you managing time? How are you managing your resources? From my experience working with students, one of the biggest challenges that students face is time management. Procrastination, leaving things until the last minute, okay? The integration of head, heart, and hands, you know, passion is very, very important. What you are doing, you must be passionate about. I am working in this environment here where I'm trying to ignite opportunity every single day because I'm passionate about it. I made this trek from this beautiful east coast of the country, the balmy Durban, nice summery days. It feels like in Mauritius all the time. Everything is close by, to Cape Town, which is cold and windy. Cape Town doesn't have 4 seasons in one day. It has 6 seasons in one day. Because you have the crossover between winter and spring. I was expecting today to be a beautiful day, and suddenly at 7 o'clock, the heavens opened. So in 2016, the dams were under 20% full. In 2020, the dams are overflowing with water. It tells you how much water we received over the last 4 years. And then lastly, you must become generative. Generative means you have to come up with solutions. Whatever you are doing doesn't operate in a vacuum. It has to be a solution towards something. The reason why entrepreneurs are successful is because they bring solutions to the market and someone is willing to pay for it. I know that many of you will write research grants, and I was very involved in fundraising at UKZN. And increasingly, funders are asking, well, what is the value of your research? How is your value, your research, going to change the world? So impact, social impact, economic impact, very, very important for you to keep in mind in the work that you're doing. Just from the kind of business point of view, if you're thinking around business, and I hope many of you are, it starts with ideation. It starts with an idea. And that idea needs to be underpinned by some kind of needs analysis. You know, what does the world need? And your ideation then is also supported by your unique value proposition. So in the work that you are doing, if I just think of one of the examples that I wrote, someone spoke about, you know, industrial symbiosis, and it is how you can use the different byproducts from that's in a company. That is a good value proposition because it shows how you can extract value from some of these byproducts that are often dumped, thrown away, etc. And this ties into the whole thinking about the circular economy. It ties into the whole notion of taking care of the environment, etc. So whatever business you have in mind, it needs to have a unique value proposition, and then you must do a needs analysis. Is there a need for it? Would the public or whoever is that you are hoping to be your client, would they purchase that from you? Because at the end of the day, entrepreneurs exist to make a profit. They exist to make money. And there's no harm in making money. I don't demonize money. Money is not the root of all evil. Human beings are the roots of all evil. We are the ones who corrupt everything. The virus isn't corona. The virus is us. We have caused more damage to the planet than the coronavirus could ever do in 1,000 years. You know, okay, so you do your prospect research, your product development, you align it to the market, and then you go down into your marketing, your client engagement, get your client to buy in. And once someone purchases something from you, it is not the end of the transaction. Any relationship needs to be stewarded. There needs to be aftercare service. You need to maintain that relationship. You need to strengthen it so that people will come back to you. I'm somewhat a creature of habit, and I'm sure that many of you are as well. So I go to a coffee shop, and I will only go to that coffee shop, not only, but I mean, I would regularly patronize that. Why? Because there is someone there who has taken an interest in me. They smile, they give you good service, etc. And this is what we all do. And these are just the elementary things about business, but very often we get it wrong. There's another book I would like you to read. It's called Simply Brilliant. I think the author is William Taylor. And the book is about how great companies do ordinary things in an extraordinary way. How great companies do ordinary things in an extraordinary way. And I think this is at the heart of all business. Okay? So that you give fantastic customer service. Include this again, ideation is very important. Value proposition, do your research, align it to the market. Think of a way of presenting it. You know, people do it now through digital marketing or whatever. Make sure that you identify your target market. Who is it that you are wanting to convince to buy this research, to support your research, to buy your product? And then lastly, how do you steward that relationship with your clients so that they come back to you? Don't be afraid. People talk about, it has been done before, so don't even bother to do it. That doesn't hold. If you take jeans, the jeans that you wear, there's probably about 20 different types of jeans on the market. You get Levi's, you get Lee, you get Rifle, you get Ronald Sassoon, you get all the others. They all appeal to a certain sector of the market. If you look at the coffee shops or places that sell burgers, whether it's Rocco Mama's or Burger King or McDonald's or Steers, they're all selling burgers and they're all making money. People go there. It's how they pitch and how the customer experience that they create. So if I had to ask all of you to draw a tree, and this is often what I've done, just a simple exercise, most of you would probably draw a tree like that. Yes or no? Would anyone draw a tree differently? Let me hear from you.
I think I would draw as like a stick figure tree because that's like really artistic. This one here looks really leafy and nice.
Okay, but it would be in the same perspective, right? So you draw a stick tree, but you would draw it in a way standing here and looking at the tree. And this is a way many of us see the world. We have a very conventional way of looking at it. Very few people will draw the tree from the top down or draw a tree from the bottom up. So this is just a simple way of saying, change your perspective on life, change the way you look at things, and don't be scared to challenge each other. You don't want groupthink in a project. You want diversity. You want different perspectives. There's another book that you might want to read. It's called The Medici Effect. Medici spelled Medici. And it was written by I think is a Norwegian author called Frans Johansson. And what he did was he researched, he said, he was intrigued by what took Europe out of the Dark Ages. If you remember your history, Europe used to be in the Dark Ages. And then from the Dark Ages, it went to the era of Enlightenment. And he looked at and when he did some of his research, he came across a family in Italy called the Medici family. And the Medici family used to host these lavish get-togethers where they would invite teachers, doctors, lawyers, engineers, scientists, philosophers, everyone, musicians. And they discovered that when diverse voices came together, innovation sparked. Because people, their diversity, they saw problems from different perspectives. And this is what is important, is to change your perspective on how you see the world. And also to change your paradigm. I mean, there's a picture here of a person. What do you see? Let's go with you, Kamisha.
I initially saw like a younger lady looking to the side, and then I saw the older lady looking down.
Okay. Can you see, how many of you can see, who can only see one person? Either a young girl or an old lady? Okay, so I assume that all of you can see both. So there's a young girl there, there's her eye. If you can see my browsing arrow. And here is the old lady, here's the old lady's eye, here's the old lady's nose, and here's the old lady's mouth. So this is just, sometimes we see we have a certain mind perspective, a paradigm. And today the paradigms have shifted. Now, instead of competing, we have to work towards collaboration. Instead of only thinking about compliance, we need to think of disruption. The new mantra in the world is disruption, disruption, disruption. Elon Musk has disrupted fossil fuel driven cars. Travis Kalanick has disrupted the taxi industry by starting Uber. Brian Chesky has disrupted the hospitality industry by starting Airbnb. These people have disrupted everything. So it's not only about complying. When I say complying, there are certain things that one has to comply with. But at the same time, rules for rules' sake doesn't make sense anymore. Sometimes we need to change things. And we need to move from an old paradigm to move towards a new paradigm. People sometimes say it can't be done. I say anything is possible. So we need to change, because the former Cisco CEO, John Chambers, said that he asked the question, are we ready to run the fastest race that has ever been run? It will be over a terrain that we have not seen before. We didn't know 8 months ago that COVID-19 was going to explode upon the world. We didn't know. And now the competition is increasing. So we are forced to run this race. And we don't even know what's going to happen in 2021. Or we know that there's going to be greater competition for resources, that there's going to be greater competition or impact financially, economically. So all of us have to literally gear ourselves up for something that we don't quite know how it's going to pan out in the new world. Innovation is a state of mind. It's about challenging yourself to think differently, challenging yourselves to interpret things. So when I do face-to-face training, I do have little exercises to do where people use their smartphone cameras and they take photographs of things that they would ordinarily walk by without seeing it. But here is my challenge to you, is to look at everything with fresh eyes. Next time, look at your chair. Look at the things that you are using. Look at your hand. Look at the amazing technology of the human hand. Really look at it. And you'll become amazed at what it is that you will see. So training yourself to see deeply, to listen to sounds, to become aware of things that you do not see, that is what will spark innovation, because it will open up your senses to an amazing world that is around us. So what do entrepreneurs really do, and what kind of habits do they have to have? Firstly, they need to make things happen. Entrepreneurs around the world are those who make things happen. If you think of what Bill Gates did, or Steve Jobs, or Elon Musk, or in South Africa, Patrice Motsepe, there could be a number of others. They make things happen. And whatever they make things happen, it could start as a startup. So many of your ideas that you have could be a startup. Also, sometimes you have to go against the herd, go against the convention, be contrarian. You have to unlock value. People always talk about, we don't have money. Being entrepreneurial isn't about having money. Sometimes you can bootstrap it through your meager resources that you have available. I remember when I was at UKZN, I encouraged my students to buy shares on the stock exchange. They did this with their bursary money. And in those days, we would buy penny shares. And some of them actually did quite nicely. So entrepreneurial leaders are shaping the world right now. You know, whether it's Jeff Bezos from Amazon, or the chap who started Zoom, or Udemy for online learning, Tesla, what's his name, Elon Musk. And it reminds me of a quote by the former scenario planner at Anglo American. He said that the strongest species don't survive, the most adaptable do. You are forced to adapt to a new world. Innovation doesn't happen, you have to create it. The same way that you have pivoted into online learning, we have to build on existing ideas, you have to continue learning, you have to make things happen. It's not always going to be easy. You are going to face roadblocks along the way. One of the biggest roadblocks that I've encountered is that people don't like change. We have our comfort zones. And whatever happens is sometimes, you know, you have a lot of fear that sets in. There's cynicism, negativity, there's a lack of skills, which is probably one of the biggest challenges in South Africa. And there's also apathy, you know, not just not wanting to do anything. And I spoke to you about entitlement earlier on. In South Africa, people want the government to provide housing, education, etc. In fact, the people who are succeeding here, to the great envy of many, are our foreign nationals. The car guards at many of the parking lots are foreign nationals. The people who work at the petrol stations, foreign nationals. The people working in the hospitality sector in Cape Town, foreign nationals. Why? Because they don't worry about a minimum wage. Now, I don't want to get into debates about, you know, exploitation, etc. But for me, if you get a job, even if you volunteer, you pick up valuable skills in that work environment about discipline, about interacting with people. And those are skills that you can build on in order to take you forward. So just be aware of this, you know, the roadblocks that you might experience of fear, or the people that you interact with, they could display cynicism or negativity. And then lastly, ladies and gentlemen, you need to thrive against all odds. Life isn't easy. There are going to be many kind of setbacks, failures. And, you know, one of the motivational speakers that I really enjoy, his name is Vusi Tembekwayo. And he once said that faith is the ability to see the invisible, to believe in the impossible, and to trust in the unknown. I don't have all the answers. And neither does my dear colleague, Professor Rawatlal, have all the answers to your questions, to the research that you might be doing. We are all learners in this world. But we have to believe in ourselves. We have to believe that there's going to be a better future out there. And we have to trust in that. So building on whatever I've said today about being action-oriented, about being driven, etc., there are certain unknowns that we just don't know. But it doesn't mean that we need to become despondent. It doesn't mean that we need to resign ourselves. We need to soldier forth. Some of the enduring qualities of humankind is resilience, its intelligence, and its adaptability. So we will survive this challenge of COVID-19. We will survive what's happening with the Zondo Commission and all of that. But we can only thrive if we become proactive. So on that note, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rudi. I really enjoyed in your presentation the balance between the inspiration and the reality of the situation. I think looking at the challenges in the country and around the world, really we are in uncharted territory, and in fact, in some ways, it makes it seem as if the world is against us, but in other ways it presents new opportunities and new drivers for innovation, and so I really enjoyed that balance between the inspiration and the reality. Of course, it places for us the relevance of entrepreneurship to our national context, and so with that I open the floor to your questions and comments. Please use the hands up feature rather than raising your hands. I can't see everyone on the screen. So please go ahead, Sudain.
Okay, can I just say, I've got another meeting starting at 12, and I do know that I went over my time thing. I thought I would be an hour. It's now almost 10 to. So I'll take about 1 or 2 questions, please. Sorry about that.
I just want to say, Dr. Kimmie, on behalf of the group, if they all don't get a chance to speak, we really want to thank you for the opportunity to listen to and to learn from you. I think you raised some valid points, and when you spoke about the tipping point as well, someone who's a basketball fan, Kobe Bryant, you know, he's big on that 10,000 hours of investing to become a pro. So I was familiar with that. But just something which I think we all kind of need to learn. I mean, if you know the debate which recently happened between President Trump and Joe Biden, you know, one of the main issues which a lot of the Democratic supporters were they had was kind of that they expected Biden to go for the in between, like the people who are undecided between, you know, Trump's and his whole supremacy and his agenda, or you know, a strong Democratic support structure. So not to get into politics, but I think the criticism towards Biden was that, you know, he would have had such a strong footing in the election coming up if he just aimed for the undecided party, you know, but he kind of wanted to play it safe and stick to the supporters and stick to basically the side of the fence which he was comfortable with. So I think what I'm saying is, with a lot of us as young entrepreneurs to be, hopefully, you know, we kind of also are trying to stick to what we know, you know, to what's safe, and we're kind of afraid to maybe go into the unknown regions of not just entrepreneurship, but also business ideas, you know, out of what we know and where our experiences are. So what advice do you have for us in sort of, you know, braving the storm, accepting the challenges, and just putting ourselves out there?
Okay, so the advice I would like to give you, Sudain, is the fact that any entrepreneurial venture involves a certain kind of risk. So your appetite for risk must be strong. Fortunately, as a student, you have a chance, you can't really fail. You know, the more you fail, and as long as you fail forward, that will be to your advantage. I came across a company in the United States. They will only employ you if you have failed in your life. And the reason why is that when you fail and you pick yourself up again, you've learned a very powerful and very profound life lesson that you cannot take anything for granted. So be aware of that. You cannot take anything for granted. Unfortunately, in South Africa, we tend to look down upon failures. We even have ways of saying, you know, if you don't score 50%, you are a failure. And that is the wrong kind of language that we are using. If someone gets 30% in a test and exam, they have learned 30%. It's successful. You know, our learning happens in very unstructured ways. We think of learning as scaffolded, you know, you do your first year, your second year, your third year. But learning doesn't really happen like that. Learning happens in somewhat bursts, impulsively. People learn lifelong. If I think of the position I'm having now, I never trained to be a CEO. when I was at UKZN. I learned the organizational dynamics outside of the institution through being involved in other organizations, through playing tennis, through interacting with, when I was a Rotarian, etc. So, you know, just think about, you can take all the risks. You should be taking more risks than you are taking right now. Because as a student, you are in a relatively safe environment, and I don't think you can make many mistakes. Any mistake that you make is going to strengthen you emotionally, psychologically, and give you the tools, provided, of course, that you are not psychologically imbalanced, where if you fail, you want to go jump off the top of the chemical engineering building or something like that.
Thank you. We'll take a last question from Zamishka, please.
Just a comment first and then my question. A common theme that I noticed between the documentary on Bill Gates, the Rotary Club thing that I did a couple of years ago, and your speech today, was that you're never too old to learn. Especially like with Bill Gates, he often takes those weekends where he literally just takes a book on maybe a programming language that he hasn't tried and just learns things from scratch. So I think that's something that sometimes we forget, but from what I'm seeing, it's something that we need to remember, that we're always there. There's always more to learn. And I guess what my question for you would be, that period, and it was sort of ringing with me throughout the presentation, when you mentioned that you left De Beers to move to Tsiba to sort of follow your passion, what was that catalyst that made you decide, okay, I have a good job here, and like you said, you could have been director, but you chose to leave that and follow what it is that you were passionate about? What was it that pushed you to make that change?
So here is where you need to really know what rocks, what floats your boat. What is it that you want in life? Many people want to become millionaires. Money is what drives them, or prestige drives them. I wasn't really that enthusiastic about money. I love it. I love money, and I think it has made me live a fairly comfortable life. But it wasn't the sole driving force in my life. And I think it's important for you to really understand and to get a balance about what it is that incentivizes you. So I was, firstly, you know, if you know mining environments, they're out in the bush. I was a single guy. I was missing the bright lights of Durban. I wanted to hang out with my friends at the beach, etc. So being stuck in a place called Lime Acres, where the nearest towns were Danielscale and Posmasburg, it didn't really float my boat. And I really missed just and the career path would have been to go from one mine to the next until you ended up in Fox Street in Joburg. So I left the mine because I really wanted to pursue a different purpose in life, and what I thought a higher purpose. And that higher purpose for me, and I don't regret it at all, I've thoroughly enjoyed working with young people. I'm 58 right now, but I love the inspiration. I love the freshness that comes with working with young people. And I wouldn't have got that if I just worked looking at different ways to extract gemstones from the ground. So you have to decide what works for you. What is it that you want to achieve? What is that inspires you? And if you can figure that out, and it might be different things over the years. And I'm not saying that you mustn't pursue wealth. You know, if we have more billionaires in South Africa, not for being a billionaire's sake, but using your billions to set up a foundation, the Jagdal Foundation or the Ramesh Warnath Foundation, and you support, you know, whatever it is that you want to support, then it's amazing. And this is what Bill and Melinda Gates are doing through their foundation. It's what the Doris Duke Foundation is doing. It's what the Kellogg Foundation is doing. It's what so many wealthy Americans have done. So from that point of view, I think if you generate money, if money is what incentivizes you, and you do something for the common good of humanity, then I think it's a great thing. So all of you need to spend some time with yourselves, thinking about what is it that you want to achieve in life. Who are you? You are not Samira, you are not Rakisha, you are not Tobekile. Those are labels. People have given you that label when you were born. You didn't ask for that name. So who are you really? And you will only really find it out if you are journeying with yourself. If you do some reflection, what is it that turns you on? What turns you off? Not your socialization, not your schooling, not your religion, not all those things. It's who are you authentically within yourself? What is it that you want to do? It's important.
So,
thank you, Randy. Thanks, guys.
So Dr. Rudi, Kimmie, thank you so much for giving so generously of your time and sharing your experiences and knowledge with us. And it's really been inspiring to us all. And we look forward to hearing more about yourself and Siba through the press and other media. And we look forward to you reading about the budding successes from this group too. Thank you very much.
Definitely. Okay, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.